Hello, folks. You're listening to Revenge of the Drive-In, the podcast where we talk about two drive-in movies and discuss whether or not this makes for a good drive-in double feature. We're brought to you by the good folks at Grandma Sophia's Cookies and as part of the Grandma Sophia's podcast network. And I am your host, Patrick, and I'm joined this time by...
Hello, everybody. It's me, Jim.
Yep, it's Jim. It's been a while since you and I have recorded, not necessarily... been a while since you and I have done our last episode based on when these are going to be released, but at any rate, it's been a while.
Yes.
And this time, we are talking about King Kong, the original 1933 film, as well as Robinson Crusoe on Mars, a movie that I fear I may have hyped up a bit too much.
Well, you know, I was actually going to say, ironically, we're talking about two movies where we have primates that are the stars of both movies.
That's right. At the end of the last episode, I got to apologize. I remembered it being a chimpanzee. It's not. It's a monkey in Robinson Crusoe on Mars. So it's not an ape.
You know what the monkey's name is? The monkey's quote-unquote real name?
Is it Shakma?
No. It's Barney the Woolly Monkey.
Okay. So he's British.
Yeah.
Doesn't that sound like a British name?
It does, yeah.
The Woolly Monkey.
Yeah, yeah, maybe he was. Or maybe it was a British
Cheeky
monkey.
Call him Cheeky Monkey.
Quick note here, quick fact number one, even though we're not going to get to Robinson Crusoe on Mars yet. Barney's a boy monkey, go figure, and he had to play a lady monkey named Mona.
That's
so
range.
The whole shoot, he had to wear a fur diaper that covers male goods. Yeah, which might be...
Why not just make him male?
I know, which might be why he was screaming a lot in the movie. I don't know.
Yeah, well, you know what the actor that played Kong's real name was?
What?
It was Willis O'Brien, the special effects master that created these beautiful models.
Oh, I thought you were going to make some stupid joke.
I couldn't think of one. I was hoping to. It just didn't come to me fast enough.
I'll allow it. I'll forgive it.
Anyways, King Kong is a movie that I grew up with. I loved this movie as a kid. My brother loved it even more. My brother was a big primate guy. I was more reptiles, snakes, dinosaurs. This is one of the few movies. It's basically this and a few of the Godzilla movies that I've actually seen in two languages because my grandfather used to always tape movies from television. And so he would just without reading what channel it was on, it's oh, this movie's showing, let me tape it. And he taped King Kong off a Spanish channel at one point. So I have seen a Spanish dub version of this at one point.
That's great.
But yeah, watching it in English again, it brought back some memories.
Yeah, well, the first time I watched King Kong, it was with my dad in 2006. It was on television, and it was Halloween night. And we watched 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and then immediately right after came King Kong. Yeah, that's it. That's nothing exciting or special, but that's what I remember.
It was in English, I take it. Or
was
it in French?
English.
Was it a French dub? Was
it
one of those Quebec channels?
Those darn French Canadians.
Yeah, so the movie King Kong begins with an Arabian proverb, the one about Beauty and the Beast. And this movie hammers that Beauty and the Beast stuff home really hard. It's actually a little annoying, if you ask me. It's I get it. It's the theme of the movie, but we don't have to be reminded of it this often. But so we meet the character of Carl Denham, who's played by Robert Armstrong, or as you see on old posters, it'll be ROB' Armstrong, back in the days when that was an acceptable abbreviation.
Get out of here.
I love that. Look it up. It's also worth looking up the poster to Robinson Crusoe on Mars because I believe that movie proclaims itself to be 100% scientifically accurate or something, which is just funny.
Oh yeah, dude,
what
hilarious.
movie would claim that?
Well, what's even funnier is that a couple of years after, probably within the decade after that movie came out, they totally knew what Mars' surface was like,
Okay. And that you can't just walk around without your helmet on?
Yeah, and there's no
stuff?
blazing fires just popping up from the surface of Mars.
Hey, that's cool stuff. But yeah, anyways, Carl Denham is a film director or a film producer. He's that guy. He's known for making adventure pictures, and he's all set to make a new movie on some ship, at some island that the ship is going to go off to, but he's being very secretive about it, so he cannot get a lead actress. He eventually finds one. He goes downtown to find one himself, and he stumbles upon this poor young woman named Ann Darrow, who is played by Fay Wray, and he meets her when she is stealing from like one of those corner market guys, and he defends her, and then they introduce themselves to each other, and he's like, hey, you want to make this movie with me? And she's thinking there's something not right about the situation. Are you making those filthy pornos? What are you doing?
Yeah. One of those filthy flip show pornos. Those
those peep shows. What is this, a peep show?
One of those Old West pornos.
Yeah, those things that they watch in Friday the 13th, the final chapter. One of those like old stag films, I think is what they're called. But because Carl Denham is a name of repute, she's familiar with him. She's like, okay, yeah, no, we'll do this. So they set sail. And it's also revealed at one point that they have a bunch of bombs and like weaponry on board the ship, because that's why they take off before they are scheduled to, because they didn't want to get caught by the police with all those weapons on, which, that's fair. So we basically only have 3 important characters here, other than obviously the stupid ape. We'll get to the ape, don't worry. But we've got this other guy, Jack Driscoll. And this performance, this guy is, what's his name? Bruce Cabot.
Mm-hmm.
I have mixed feelings on this performance. I think he's genuinely awful, but because he's so bad, it makes it kind of fun and almost funny to me, because everything he says, it sounds like he's saying it sarcastically, and he's given a lot of the dialogue that's aged really badly about the like, oh, we can't have a woman on board the ship, but he's given a lot of those kinds of lines, and when he delivers it in that way, it almost makes it sound like the movie's aware of how dumb this is, and it's not. It's just like a weird coincidence where the performance is that bad that it works in the 21st century. Because if you didn't know this movie's from 1933. It's a classic. It's obviously a beloved film. It's super influential. But if you're looking for, empowering representation of women or of other races, this is not the movie for you. I mean, it's a movie from the 30s. Like, it's got some issues when it comes to the women and the natives specifically.
Well, I was thinking,
bad dinosaur representation too. The T-Rexes have
true.
3 fingers on one hand. It's like, that's not a T-Rex.
They get attacked by a brontosaurus and eaten by a brontosaurus.
Well, it's a wild animal. It wouldn't eat them, but it's a wild animal. It can attack. Like, deer can just freak out and like, you've seen Tommy Boy, right? I mean,
yeah. I like how your go-to was deer, though. Deer just can freak out.
Yeah, well, they do. A deer ran into my car once. We didn't hit it. It hit us. But Brontosaurus, we got to throw this out there, at one point was not a dinosaur, because we realized it was a mistake, that it was like a Brachiosaurus head on an Apatosaurus body, or maybe the other way around.
Yeah,
but now
like
I believe Brontosaurus is an official dinosaur again. I think we recognize that other thing was a mistake. So it's confusing era for Brontosaurus. It's the Pluto of dinosaurs. But I think he's accepted now. I think the Brontosaurus is back.
I at least accept them.
I accept the Brontosaurus for who he is. Eventually, because the crew is getting a little uneasy, mainly Driscoll, who's like the first mate, eventually Denham has to reveal where they're going. They're going to Skull Island, where there's a legend of the Kong or whatever. Yeah, and he's basically just like, hey, listen, no Westerner has seen this guy. We're going to go there. We don't know what we're looking for, but whatever we find is going to be fascinating, because none of us have been there. And this is one of those things where it's like, even if you made this movie like 20 years later, it wouldn't really work, or if the movie was set like 20 years later, this kind of like, there's still unexplored areas of the world. I feel like that is completely gone now, right?
Yeah, this was the era when I don't even think the first...
It was going away at this point, even, I think. But, 1933...
This was the era that, people were setting out to find those last far-flung corners of the world, those last exotic, dangerous places, The ocean liner had really only been around for, 50 years? Maybe 40 years? But, the first trans-Pacific flight didn't even happen till the 30s, I think, right? Or, the late 20s, so...
Probably. We see the planes they work with in this movie, obviously.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out, too, I really love the series of scenes where they talk about getting to the island, or how they're going to find the island, or, the mystery, all the mysterious stuff about the island.
Yeah, it's covered in fog, like always. There's kind of a Bermuda Triangle type setup.
I think it's what's his name? What's the name of the captain? They just call him Skipper, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if he really has a name, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think Denham's talking to him, and he's like, do you know where we're going? Far out into the ocean. He goes, west of Sumatra? Oh, my lord.
Yeah, he mentions Sumatra, yeah.
Yeah.
They're in kind of the region, I guess, where, if you've read the Herman Melville novel Moby Dick, this is kind of the part of the world where Queequeg is from, I think. So he's from that, Indonesia part, where I think they say he's from, Fiji. I don't think Fiji was called Fiji back then, but I think that's where Queequeg is from. Queequeg, one of the all-time great fictional characters. Great stuff. That book's amazing, man. Moby Dick.
This is a bit of a tangent, but I gotta learn how to speak. Patrick, if you want to get a really nice copy of Moby Dick, look on the Folio Society. They've got a beautiful copy of it.
Could you send me a picture of that?
Yeah, for sure.
A nice little dick pic.
Oh, nice little dick pic.
Yeah, that's where I was going with that. Okay. All right. Well, Moby Dick aside, let's hold the dick. Let's hold my dick, please, for a second. Let's get back to Kong. So we've got, so they're approaching the island. They see the island. They hear some drums, and eventually, an away team gets up. They take their little boats, their little lifeboat things, and they head over there. And it's enough people for the camera crew. It's the captain, and it's some guys with guns, and then it's Driscoll, Denham, and Anne.
Mm-hmm.
They stumble upon this native ceremony of some sort where there's people in ape costumes, dancing around. They're getting ready to, we learn, because the captain communicates with them and can understand them. Fortunately, this society that has never seen a white man, fortunately he knows their language because he's a ship captain. He's been everywhere. They're preparing a sacrifice for the Kong. But the tribal chief, the witch doctor, the mayor of the town, whatever this guy is.
Yeah.
The alderman.
Yeah.
He is fascinated with Anne.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, we want Anne. How much for this, the golden, I think he says golden haired or something.
Yeah,
And they're like, no, she's not for sale.
But what if I give you 6 of our women?
Oh, yeah, that's right. There's some bargaining that takes place. And so, okay, so the negotiations are off, and Denham is planning on going back the next day and trying again to make friends and be able to shoot a movie here. But in the middle of the night, a bunch of natives come aboard the ship and kidnap Anne. Driscoll realizes they've been aboard because he finds he finds, I think, Anne's necklace on the...
No, Charlie finds...
Charlie's the cook, right?
Yeah, and he finds a
Chinese
native bracelet.
Yeah, that's what it is.
On the edge of the boat.
Yeah, and then they realize they can't find Anne, so they figure, okay, she's been taken. Anne is now part of the sacrifice where they take her beyond this giant wall, which is amazing. I love all the stuff with this there's an impressive set here. A lot of it is miniatures too, eventually, obviously, when we've got Kong involved, but this giant wall thing is awesome.
I was looking up how they did some of the special effects, and when they roll up to the island in the Venture or on the Venture, and they're looking at the village, that was hand painted on glass.
Yeah, I was going to say there's matte, I don't know if they would have been called matte paintings at this time.
Yeah, it was glass matte painting.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. I noticed that in a few other scenes too. Yeah, it's really impressive stuff, really innovative stuff.
It is, yeah, and it actually looks pretty, it still holds up relatively well, all things considered.
Pretty much. I mean, obviously we get to this movie, obviously stop motion, and stop motion is one of those things, it never looks perfect. Stop motion does. It never it's a little janky, it's a little weird, awkward, but there's something about stop motion. I will take aged, dated stop motion over dated CG any day. The 1998 Godzilla, just throwing a movie out there.
Yes, yeah.
Where it's special effects that were maybe decent for the time, but that's 25 years old now or something, really, really good CG from a while ago, Jurassic Park, still looks pretty good today.
Yeah. Well, it's also stuff like Jurassic Park, they mixed CG with actual physical props and effects. Right?
Which is sort of the same thing here. We get some lovely Kong close-ups of his beautiful dumb ugly face, and it's it's those shots when I was a kid were always very funny to me because Kong's expression are just kind of stupid looking.
Yeah, it's always just like mouth agape.
Yeah, he's like,
and his
hey.
mouth, yeah, and his jaws just moving up and down.
Yeah, those are a little silly, but I like that they mixed him in though. Just to first of all, you see, there's a few times he shoves people in his mouth, and that's awesome.
I mean, absolutely. Or like a giant foot crushing somebody into the dirt.
Oh, that's great. Great stuff, yeah.
But also you mentioned this awesome looking wall, and it really does look awesome. Because I was watching this on Prime. They're putting up like facts, the movie trivia,
sure.
And I forget where the wall came from, but I caught that that the wall and the gate were destroyed in '39 for Gone with the Wind's Burning of Atlanta sequence.
Oh no. From one racist movie to another.
Well, okay, hold on. Let's tackle the race thing, because I was watching this.
In this or Gone with the Wind? This. I assume. I've never seen Gone with the Wind all the way through. I've seen bits.
Yeah, me neither. To be honest, there are. I guess like Charlie is the most racist depiction because he's also named Charlie.
Oh, see, no, I wasn't thinking. I mean, it's really just the natives. The natives are just like
even the natives though, but they're not portrayed as like stupid or like idiots. They're portrayed as like
that's true,
pretty intelligent, interesting.
But they do sacrifice women to this monster god thing, though. I mean, that's really the problem. That's what I mean by like this. That's like an outdated kind of.
Yeah, I mean, it's no
like,
dated
what
concept.
do these primitive people do? It's like, yeah, sure, we'll sacrifice women, and then that these black men, I know this is like in Asia or somewhere, but I mean, I'm just talking about like the actors are just immediately obsessed with the first white woman they ever see. That's a little.
Yeah, well, like, and again, because we both have studied history to some extent. And the weird thing is, like, I was watching.
Well, you've studied art history. That doesn't count.
Well, I'll get out of here. Actual history, sir. I have a degree in actual history. Oh shit! What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Well, it's interesting because like you brought up the sacrificial stuff, but I mean, societies did do that. I mean, like look at the South American and Mesoamerican societies, right?
Yeah,
and even like cannibalistic societies. And then I mean, you still have like the Sentinelese people on North Sentinel Island, right? Who are eating people and sacrificing people.
And you've got Leatherface.
Yeah, but I don't know. I just I didn't find it that offensive. But again, I am a white male.
It's not like one of those things. Like, I mean, I sort of understand what you're saying, but I'm not saying like it's just a little awkward. It's just a little awkward.
It's just a little outdated,
I
guess.
Yeah, that's it more than anything. More than it being like specifically anything being like horrifically wrong with it. It's just more like, oh, it's of the time, and it's aged badly, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I get that, but I was thinking, like, after watching...
The attitude towards women, maybe even more so. Like, just the way some people talk about that.
That's the worst part about it, for sure. Like, we don't need a woman on the ship,
Yeah, but again, like I said, that performance is so bad that it's like, it really sounds sarcastic.
I think he's drunk all the time. I genuinely, I think that actor's drunk.
Well, I read that he was like, I don't know if he was a last-minute replacement, but this is like his first major role. It might be his first movie at all, but he was a replacement. It was supposed to be somebody else, and they dropped out, and so they got this guy out of a dumpster somewhere. Like, this guy is not supposed to have this big of a role in this big of a film at the time. It kind of just worked out that way. So, I mean, it in that sense, it makes sense. Like, okay, yeah, he's not very good because he doesn't know what he's doing. I think Fay Wray's good. I think Robert Armstrong is really good. He has this like charm about him, but he's also like this carnival barker, like con man type thing where I think he pulls that off really well.
Yeah, I liked him.
I don't think I would call him an antagonist, but like obviously he does some really horrible things, and the entire second half of the movie is basically his fault. But like I don't know. I think there's he's not just like this raging asshole necessarily, but I think he's just this guy. He doesn't understand that his actions have consequences, and I think it's like this. It's that part of the movie that ages actually really well.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that in one sense this movie is like, yeah, it's showing we don't the way this movie treats women, not that great. The way this movie treats weirdo fictional races that we've never come across, like, yeah, that's not the most flattering. But I also like, at the end of the day, this is a movie about this guy is exploiting nature and the unknown. And he doesn't really end up paying the price, but a bunch of people do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And, I was watching this. It's hard not to compare this to Peter Jackson's version that came out, almost 15 years ago now, I guess?
That was 2005. I remember that, yeah.
Denham is a much more likable character in this than he was in that version.
And not just because he's Jack Black.
Yeah.
A lot of people like Jack Black. I never have. I think he's very, very miscast in that movie. He's just not right for the part.
I think you're totally right on that. And the character in Peter Jackson's version is written as just an asshole who's willing to do anything for money, fame, and fortune, and who's willing to do anything to get his shot.
Yeah, that's part of the character, but it's not horribly blatant. But it's still there. You can still read that in the character, in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's more interesting, because I think, this is a guy that, people question him here and there, but the people who work with him have worked with him before. The skipper, Driscoll, they like him.
Yeah.
So I just think it works better. But yeah, that's definitely true of the Peter Jackson King Kong.
In this, Denham is kind of a worldly, traveled person who has gone to these far-flung, exotic places. He might be a bit of an asshole.
He makes those. I think what's the line is you make those jungle pictures, don't you, or something? It's this is a guy. He's like a John Huston. John Huston went to Africa to shoot the African Queen. Mm-hmm. At least according to the fictional depiction of him in the Clint Eastwood movie White Hunter, Black Heart, which is a super underrated movie. Clint Eastwood plays a John Huston type in that, and apparently, at least according to that movie, I don't know if that was true, but John Huston was a raging asshole and insisted on going out and hunting animals that it was illegal to hunt. I think it was elephants or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, so he's sort of like that a little bit.
There's
maybe.
even that throwaway line. Well, I guess it's not even really a throwaway line, but when they get to the village and he kind of comes out from behind the bushes and he starts recording the tribal dance going on. And he said, "I always take my pictures personally. I used to have a cameraman, but he was too worried that I wasn't going to shoot the rhino before it hit him," or something like that. In Africa. And it was oh, okay, I get you. I understand what kind of person you are.
Anyways, you got to get back to the movie, because this is the introduction of Kong.
Oh, yes, sorry.
This is the famous scene. So Anne is tied up on this sacrificial altar beyond the wall. They bang on the gong a few times, and Kong shows up. And of course, this is Kong. This should come as no surprise, is a giant gorilla.
I like it should come as no surprise.
Well, I mean, we all know who King Kong is. We all know.
Yeah.
And he takes Anne. Normally, I think he just kills the women, but this time he takes Anne. He also is infatuated with this beautiful young white woman. And while this is going on, this is when the crew come ashore, and then they realize they look through some gaps in the wall and see this giant gorilla running off with her, and they're like, "Oh no, what's going on?" So they decide to go in pursuit. And this is another thing where it's Denham, not just a complete asshole. He's a willful participant in this search party. He's not just oh, we need the camera, we need to film this thing. It's not he sees that and immediately is oh, how can I make money off of this? No, he's trying to help here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely, and he's also got a gun, right? Everybody's got a gun because they're all shooting everything.
Yeah, well, they're well armed, as we discussed, because they've got bombs, got smoke bombs, they've got guns.
Yeah, and he's front and center, with everybody else pretty much.
It's Driscoll who's definitely the most emotionally invested, because somewhere we kind of skipped over it because those are some of the least interesting scenes, mostly because the Driscoll actor is so bad. But he gives Anne a hard time for a while, but he eventually comes to like her. It's a bit of a will they, won't they kind of thing, except it's kind of abrupt and it doesn't really work because one of the actors is terrible. But anyways, they are going after Anne, and Anne is in possession of this giant gorilla. What's he going to do with her? I mean, let's discuss this a bit. What is his plan? What's his end game here?
Well, at one point he starts ripping her clothes off of a.
He does. That's true.
The clothes off of an unconscious woman. So make of that what you will.
The physics of it, though. Let's just the size difference is a little.
Okay.
I mean, what's he doing? Is it just genuine curiosity?
That's the thing that I liked about the Peter Jackson version, because it seemed like genuine curiosity. And like the whole Peter Jackson love thing
I'm gonna
was
disagree.
kind of...
I'm gonna politely disagree when they start going ice skating in Central Park. I'm like, what the hell is this?
That's
what
when it gets bad. You're right. Because like
I thought the Peter Jackson one hit home the love story even harder. Although at least I think they probably did more with the Anne character to show her to be more than a damsel in distress, which is pretty much just all that Fay Wray is in this movie, unfortunately.
I forgot that essentially what you just said is totally correct. I thought she had actually done more. Instead, she just screams throughout the entire movie.
Pretty
and doesn't
much
do anything but scream. Whereas in the Peter Jackson one, she actually, I don't know, does stuff. And
well, I remember he's like flicking her around, and then she eventually like screams no at him and is able to get him to kind of like listen to her just like a bit. I don't think that really comes back, but there is that. I remember that scene. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. It's not a bad movie, but it's 7 hours long. You know, it's
you know, there's a couple of really great like monster scenes in this movie, which we're gonna get to shortly, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
But one of the most disgusting and terrifying scenes in any movie that's like not a horror movie. Yeah, well, it's the slug scene where Gollum and the
specifically where those like things just like
those slug worms.
Limbs.
Yeah, that was disgusting. I remember being terrified by that.
So we've got creatures here. What's our first creature? Is it the Brontosaurus?
No, it's a Stegosaurus.
Oh yeah, that's right. It's the Stegosaurus. The Stegosaurus is just minding its own business, but then they bother it, and it starts charging them. So they shoot it.
Yeah.
And this poor innocent animal, they shoot it, and then it's not dead, so they continue to shoot it. And there's some interesting effects here, because as the camera follows, it's Denham and Driscoll as they're like walking around the Stegosaurus. It's really neat. They do like the rear screen projection, I guess is what it would be called, and that's really neat. And like, you know, the tail's still moving, the thing's still alive. So that's some really cool stuff. The camera doesn't match the movement of the camera. Doesn't quite match with the movement of the screen, because I think there's one point where they're not really moving, but the camera's still, the screen's still moving or something. But, you know, it's overall 1933, degree of difficulty high. Like, they did a good job here. But yeah, they killed this poor innocent animal. That's right.
Which when I saw that scene, I just imagined that scene being in the second Jurassic Park, you know, where they're like going through the forest and that herd
that's the first dinosaurs they see it's the first dinosaurs the main characters see in that movie too. And they also attack for no reason. Well, no, it's specifically, I think in that case it's specifically because Vince Vaughn's camera flash goes off or something.
I think that's it. But I was like, imagine if it was different and they just started unloading on all these Stegosaurus. That would be exactly like King Kong.
So then after the Stegosaurus thing, the main characters, it's two of the main characters and a bunch of red shirts basically, show up to this lagoon, you know, body of water, giant swamp, lake, whatever, and they need to get across, and they construct a raft. And as they're going across the body of water on a raft, they are attacked by a Brontosaurus. And this is a very exciting scene. We've got a lot of, you know, scarecrow dummies kind of being thrown around. That was I always loved that stuff as a kid. But yeah, we've got this Brontosaurus. They eventually make it to the shore, but the Brontosaurus still continues to chase. One person climbs up in a tree, which is probably not a great idea because you're like literally at the ideal height for this thing. Yeah. They eat trees. That's what they do. They don't eat people. They eat trees. But maybe that's why he eats them, because he's hiding by the leaves. He just thought he got a very big leaf.
I gotta say, I love this whole like sequence of scenes. They're probably my favorite in the movie, just because the Brontosaurus in the swamp looks so good, and when he starts picking people out of the water and like throwing them, that looks brutal and amazing.
It does, until they cut to like just the dummy falling or the miniature or whatever. Yeah, but I know what you mean. Yeah, it looks awesome. Yeah, the water dripping from like a model creature in black and white always looks awesome, whether it's Godzilla, whether it's, you know, the stupid Brontosaurus thing. Always great. So then Kong sets Anne down, because they catch up to Kong, apparently. They're in the woods or the forest, the rainforest, whatever. It's like daytime now, but they catch up. Kong sets Anne down on this like tree and then goes back, and everyone's crossing like a ravine, a canyon or whatever, on a log. And Kong starts messing around with the log, tips a bunch of guys over. Driscoll survives. He takes refuge in this like little cave area on like side of the ravine on the Kong side. The side that Kong came from, where Anne is, not the other side. Kong knows he's left because everyone else is gone. Kong knows he's still there, and he's reaching for him. He stabs him, or he stabs Kong's hand with his little knife, which is awesome. And then so Kong eventually kind of... Well, what really gets him away is Anne starts screaming because a T-Rex is coming for her. So that's, that gets Kong away. And then there's also this giant lizard guy that comes up.
Yeah, it was like a Komodo dragon or something.
Well, it was a weird... like, because I looked closely at this. He's only got 2 limbs. I looked closely at this because that's the design of the creatures in Kong Skull Island. I think they call them like skull crawlers or something. They only have the 2 arms or whatever, the 2 arms, legs, whatever you want to call them. And I always thought that was kind of a stupid design. But I think it was inspired by this guy. I think, because I only saw two limbs.
I mean, it would make sense, yeah.
Yeah, but I love this scene because it's like, oh no, it's like this like exciting suspenseful thing, but then he just kind of cuts the vine that he's hanging on, and he just falls. Very anticlimactic. It's kind of like the Raiders of the Lost Ark when that guy's swinging the sword around and Indiana Jones just shoots him. It's a bit like that.
Exactly,
like you think this is going to be more exciting than it ends up being, but it's kind of funny too. But speaking of exciting, this is where we get the famous Kong versus T-Rex fight. And this scene is awesome. Some of the most satisfying effects. So a lot more of rear screen projection here. Because this is they're doing something really difficult here. It's not just these two clay model creatures fighting. But they integrate Anne into the scenes a lot. Which is really tough to do. And it looks pretty good. It doesn't look perfect, obviously. This is a movie from the 30s, but it looks very good. The 2 are fighting. There's a scene where Anne's in the tree. The tree starts falling, and it's that rear screen projection thing behind her, which is cool. And after the tree falls, Anne is kind of pinned underneath it. She's trying to get out because she's trying to run from these 2 creatures, but she just can't get out. And then... yeah, so Kong versus the T-Rex. This was always my favorite scene as a kid, and I was always disappointed in who won. Every time. I'd seen this movie a bunch of times, and each time I was, like, upset. I'm thinking, like, no, that's not how it would have happened. Come on. Like, the T-Rex let me down. He let me down because he gets his jaw snapped, which is such a cool, brutal, awesome way.
Yeah, especially for 1933.
Yeah, there's blood. There's a lot of blood. You see some blood with the Stegosaurus, too. But, there's a bloody movie for the time. But yeah, and I love how because after he snaps like the jaw, he does that thing. But then he kind of plays with it after he's done it, and it's like, oh my God.
I know, yeah.
He's an animal.
I know, exactly. You're like, oh yeah, this is like a powerful animal.
He's a monster. This is an extinct creature you just killed. Yeah. Somebody bring this guy up on poaching charges.
He's already dead. Leave him alone.
So Kong takes Anne. At this point, too, Driscoll is the only one on the Kong/Anne side of that ravine, whatever they crossed.
Yeah. And
Denham was on the other side, and they had like some like Denham's like, okay, I'll get back, and we'll have that door open for you when you come back.
Yeah, and I'm gonna get more gas.
Yeah, more
bombs.
Guns, more. Yeah, he's gonna fill up on his gas. He's gonna eat some beans. And he'll be ready. But yeah, so Driscoll's on his own. And he follows Kong and Anne into this like cave mountain area where Kong fights another creature. He fights like a sea monster thing.
Yeah, like a snake.
I think it's got limbs though, but it's snake-like, Loch Ness monster-like. He fights the thing. And then on the outside, there's like this cliff ledge on the outside, which is where he and Anne are hanging out. I think that's where he's taken off Anne's clothes. I think.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable. A little awkward. What's he doing? What is that ape doing? Anyways, he sets Anne down because he hears Driscoll inside the cave. So he goes like looking for him and he almost finds him. But then a pterodactyl has come outside to attack Anne and pull her away. And so Kong has to go over there. He fights the pterodactyl, which is really awesome. And when that's happening, Driscoll finds Anne and they climb down a vine from the cliff. But Kong disposes of the pterodactyl and realizes that they're on the vine. So he starts pulling the vine up until Driscoll using that knife that he used earlier in the film, cuts themselves off of the vine, and they fall into a river theoretically like 1,000 feet below them or several hundred feet. You know, it's fortunate this worked out.
Well, you know, I also want to point out the movie is so exciting. From the minute Anne gets taken, it's run-in with monster, monster fight, monster fight, monster fight, monster fight.
Yeah, there's no filler in this middle section. There really isn't.
It's all great. It's all 100% gold.
Well, it's black and white, but yeah. There's no color in this movie.
Shut up.
But anyways, Anne and Driscoll are running back to the wall, to the village, where there's exciting music playing, which we haven't mentioned the music, of course, but this is the third oldest movie we've done on this podcast. We did Frankenstein, we did Dracula, we also did The Invisible Man, which was released the same year as this. But this is a full-on, legitimate musical score.
Yeah.
And this is one of the earliest films to have that. Like, this is a super influential movie, not just for its special effects, but even for its music, like what it was doing. Like, we saw, Frankenstein, Dracula, they both open with that Ballad of Swan Lake song, and then there's, like, no musical score the rest of the movie. Like, King Kong is just, for the music alone, is so much more lively than most movies that came out before it and everything. And so that's great. But this is where the music is really hitting you hard as they're running through the vines and the ferns.
Oh, which, by the way, another fun fact that Amazon Prime gave me about the jungle was that it was the jungle set built for the most dangerous game.
Yeah, which that was a movie, because this movie had two directors, King Kong did. Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Shedsack, I think. One of those two guys also directed The Most Dangerous Game, which that movie came out in 1932. That's a really good movie. I like it a lot. I think maybe like some of the actors in this movie might be in that one too. I can't remember. Maybe Robert Armstrong or something. But yeah, this was an RKO movie, which RKO is, I don't think they're anymore. Maybe they got bought out. Maybe they just went under. I don't know. But I think it was RKO's practice to make like two movies at a time back then. It was kind of like how movies would be released in like the 1950s. You had like an A movie and a B movie.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of I think they shot a couple movies at the same time, and they did like one movie, this is going to be a bigger production, more money, more actors. This other movie, we're using the same sets, but it's going to be a little smaller. And I think the Most Dangerous Game was like the smaller King Kong, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Because that's a good movie too. It's not as good as King Kong, certainly not as classic as King Kong, but that's worth watching. That's on our list somewhere. Denham and the gang opens up this giant door for Anne and Driscoll, but as they shut it, this is where Kong approaches, and then all of a sudden the villagers, who I don't know what they've been doing, but they're back. They're trying to barricade the door as well, because Kong is pushing through, and then in one of the most iconic shots, I think, in all of cinema, he eventually breaks through, and everyone scatters and runs. And I love this shot. This is the shot of the movie right here. This is so great. Like, I completely forget that this is not just an effects shot, but like a blending of a couple of effects. Because not only do you have a obviously a miniature stop motion monster in Kong opening the door, but you also have all of those people running away, and that's a separate effect just to get them into a shot with this miniature, with the miniature is going to look gigantic. Like, remember we talked about that with Godzilla. That was the original Godzilla movie has a few shots that don't look very good, and it's because it's trying to blend real actors to make them seem miniature compared to this Godzilla thing.
Yeah.
But it looks outstanding here in 1933. Great stuff. This is our full-on Kong Havoc mode, where fortunately he doesn't kill any of the white people. Darn well that's what the filmmakers are thinking.
He already killed a bunch of white people earlier when he threw them down the ravine.
It's not like it's the
natives'
just talking
turn.
about this scene specifically. We've got mostly native red shirts, which they're not even wearing shirts, most of them, but they're throwing spears at him. He's knocking down their buildings. He's stepping on them in the mud. He's throwing them in his mouth and just kind of taking them out.
Yeah.
Not really sure what he's doing there. There's a fun scene where there's like there's a crowd of people just running in every which way, and there's like a little baby sitting down crying, and then the mom from inside her house notices him and screams when she sees him, and then fortunately the baby is saved
just before Kong's foot comes down.
Yeah, because he would have murdered a baby. And, I'm not a big fan of children, so I'm already Kong. He's winning me back a little bit after killing the T-Rex. I'm starting to like him a little bit more. Eventually, he tears apart New York City, and he's always got anybody who does that has my support. Like that, I remember in Godzilla King of the Monsters, Ghidorah takes on Boston in that movie, and he just like rips Boston to shreds, and the entire city's on fire. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be rooting against this guy? It's Boston. Come on.
I don't know why I found that so funny.
Oh, no one likes Boston. Eventually, Kong kind of gets to the beach, and they just smoke bomb the shit out of him, and they just like knock him out, and then they're getting ready to. Well, we kind of they wisely edit around this. We never see them transporting Kong across the ocean, because we don't really know how that would be done. I guess they construct a giant raft and just a constant dose of gas bombs to like keep them knocked out, I guess. But really, it doesn't matter. King Kong versus Godzilla, they transport him by balloons. There's no realistic way to handle this.
Yeah.
But we then cut ahead to New York City, where Carl Denham has this Broadway theater sold out because he's got this Kong show. And I love that there are people entering the show who have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
They literally have no idea. Like, they're not even sure if it's a play or not. And they're like, Denham, he makes those jungle pictures. What's he doing with a Broadway show or whatever? And it's like, it's not even a play. Like, and there was, did you catch how much money the tickets cost? Because there's a line. I think I have it written down.
I did. I looked it up. Let me just reopen my my document here.
Oh, $10,000. One guy said it was. Oh no, $10,000 is the total take.
Yeah, so he said tickets cost $20, and in 1933 it was the equivalent of $420 today per ticket. Later, Denham goes, we pulled in like $10,000 that night.
$10,000 was the total box office take, which that's just one day. He's expecting that for weeks.
Exactly, and I also did the conversion on that. That's $210,000 in today's money, and actually that's Canadian.
Oh, so it's like 320,000 probably.
It's 3.75 million billion.
Okay.
In American.
What? No, okay. Shut up. Yeah, that's Hamilton money, I think.
Yeah, I think
it's Hamilton money. It's at least Dear Evan Hansen money, if not Hamilton money, So, Denham, of course, has Driscoll and Anne there, and he wants them to get their photos with the press, because the press obviously. So Kong he's chained up on this big thing, and they're taking photos, and then eventually, obviously, the curtains open. Denham, of course, gives this little introduction. Then they open the curtains. Everyone marvels at this giant, stupid gorilla, and gorilla starts freaking out because specifically, I mean, he recognizes Anne and Driscoll. Really, I think he's freaking out because he loves Anne or likes Anne or wants to take her clothes off again or something, but then also because Driscoll is the guy that took her from him. So it's a bit of a love triangle, I guess you could say, soap opera-y.
This would make a great episode of The Young and the Restless.
Yeah, no, I don't know what I was going to say. I was going to make some gorilla joke like the
I don't know, the hairy and the drunk.
No, damn it, I know, because I was going to say something about a silverback, except silver sounds old, so the silverback and the Restless, I don't know. So within 5 seconds of this show actually starting, Kong, of course, escapes. And this is just like, you gotta question the if they really had the best engineers working on this thing. This is the Great Depression, so maybe this was just one of those jobs programs where they just, like, any random guy designs these chains for this giant man-eating ape that's supposed to restrain him.
One of my favorite lines in it was, "Don't worry, folks, it's perfectly safe. This is chromium steel," or whatever. And I'm like, that's just chrome. It's just like chromed steel. That just doesn't make it
What's
stronger.
that internet thing supposed to do to keep that gorilla from escaping? Or at least use ExpressVPN. This episode, of course, brought to you not by ExpressVPN, because they sponsor everybody but us, but...
was gonna say that'd be a great segue to say that we got a sponsor.
It would be. It would have been, but at least we're not sponsored by HelloFresh. Every internet person on Earth seems to be sponsored by HelloFresh, and I can never imagine a single person actually using that service. Is anyone that lazy that they wouldn't grocery shop?
I can name a few. One who I currently live with. I'd like to be sponsored by MeUndies. That'd be all right.
I don't even know what that is.
Nice.
Is that from The Room?
Nice, lovely underwear.
That's the line from The Room.
No, it isn't. Get out of here.
It is. Oh, no. He says me underwears. Excuse me. But he does say me. me
How
underwears.
Unfortunate.
So anyways, the gorilla has escaped, and these people are fleeing the theater faster than the early previews of Spider-Man Into the Dark or whatever, when the stuntmen were dying. Do you remember that story?
No.
That was I don't know if anyone died, but there were several, because they were doing a Spider-Man musical, and tickets for the rehearsal began being more expensive than other actual show tickets, and it was specifically because many stuntmen had been injured, because it was all these aerial acrobatics and stuff.
Oh my god.
And then it was just this really dark, twisted thing where people were 100% paying to go hopefully see someone get hurt. And it's the only thing I can imagine, it's if every single person at the Daytona 500 is deep down hoping there's a major crash or something. I'm sure a few are thinking that.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine everyone is,
No, and that'd be pretty morbid to assume.
Oh, and to add insult to injury, the music was made by Bono and The Edge for that Spider-Man musical. It was. I don't know why. But yeah, anyway, Kong's on the loose. He's in Midtown. He's running around. Anne and Driscoll have left. They're going back to... first of all, they're about to get married. That's mentioned at some point. It's not really important, but they're engaged or something. They're going to... I guess one of their apartment buildings. Maybe they both live together in sin. I don't know. It was 1933. I mean, that's frowned upon in 1933. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
But Kong eventually starts climbing the building that they're in. He pulls this poor sleeping woman out of her bed, realizes it's not Anne, and just throws her down, murdering her. But this kind of on her for sleeping throughout that major panic outside. I think it's a commentary on New Yorkers, how weird stuff can happen and they'll just go about their day.
That's what I actually thought, to be honest.
No, I'm sure it's not, but it's just it's a little monster movie thing, right? Eventually, Kong finds Anne's room. A giant arm reaches in, and this is a fun effect because it's an arm of real size arm. It knocks out Driscoll because Driscoll raises a chair. He's gonna by God on this thing, but then he just gets knocked out pretty easily. And so this gorilla takes Anne. Kong also takes out a train, of course, because you got to have that. Remember we had Godzilla taking out a train.
I know.
The Invisible Man took out a train. We've had a lot of train crashes and stuff. In the movie The Swarm, a train goes down. So Kong eventually climbing the Empire State Building. And it's some police guys, and it's Denham and it's Driscoll in this office. And this scene feels a little bit slapped together, but they're oh no, what are we going to do? And then they hear on the radio broadcast, Kong is climbing the Empire State Building. And then they're oh. And then one of them's wait, what if we use planes? And they're oh, that's a great idea. Why weren't we thinking of that?
Oh yeah, planes exist. I forgot.
Yeah, well, 33, they're relatively newfangled technology at this point, But yeah, so they launched some planes from LaGuardia or it wasn't JFK back then. JFK wasn't born. No, he was born. He was living his fraudulent life somewhere as a 15-year-old kid at this time.
He was living his fraudulent life.
Well, if you read his Harvard entrance essay,
No,
that man was entering his Ivy League college. He was at a fourth grade writing level. He was just the Kennedys are a bunch of frauds. Anyways, these planes launch. And they are after Kong. Kong is atop the Empire State Building, of course, in one of the most famous climactic sequences in all of film. The planes shoot at him. He sets Anne down so that he can fight them off. He's, like a little cat going after one of those laser pointers. He's swinging around. And he takes down a plane or two, doesn't he? At least
he takes one
maybe
down,
just one. Which, wouldn't you feel awful to be that guy? Like you're on in a plane. You have a machine gun on your plane. You can attack this thing from a distance. How do you get close enough to get thrown to the ground?
I know, right? Yeah, all the other pilots
it's a new
must be making fun
technology.
of that guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, at the funeral, they're just like, well, this is
get a load of this guy. A giant monkey killed him. What a loser.
Anyways, Kong is eventually, of course, taken out. He falls, and I love this shot where you see like this beautiful shot of the Empire State Building. You see this like little Kong miniature thing like fall against the side and was like hits the side a couple times going down. Awesome stuff. He's, of course, on the ground in the street. A crowd has gathered. I always felt there should be like a crater here, like a little, maybe not like a giant crater, but like a
but he's broken through the pavement.
Yeah, a little bit, at least a little bit here. Give me something, movie. But anyways, they're like the police is like holding everyone back, and then Denham just goes up there and he's like, "Oh, hold on, sir, no one's allowed to cross." And he's like, "Oh, wait, I'm Carl Denham," and he's like, "Oh, excuse me," and they're thinking like, "No, put this guy in chains. This guy that did it."
Yeah.
But yeah, so he gets to say his final goodbye to Kong, and of course he reminds us. Well, because there's one guy who's like, "Oh yeah, the airplanes got him," which, like, what kind of line is that? Like, obviously. Then Denham's like, "No, it wasn't the airplanes. It was Beauty killed the Beast." And that's our final line of the movie. We skipped the other Beauty and the Beast lines because that's mentioned a few times. It's mentioned, pretty sure, when they're talking to the press at the Kong gala. The Kong Broadway show. It's mentioned a couple other times, I'm sure. It's mentioned a lot.
The first time it's mentioned, she's holding a monkey on the ship. Ann Darrow is holding
That's
a
right.
monkey.
Well, the first time it's mentioned is the Arabian proverb to start the film, of course.
Oh,
but
yeah,
yes,
right.
The first time it's mentioned in the dialogue. Yeah, she's got a little monkey. That's right. We do have monkeys in both films.
I wonder if that one was Barney,
fair.
too. How old do those kind of monkeys live to be?
Not old enough to be in both films, I doubt. I'll just put it that way. But anyways, Jim, what did you think of King Kong?
Yeah, it's great. It's a classic. It's a must-see if you haven't seen it. And for anybody who hasn't seen it, what are you doing with your life? You should probably watch it. It's fantastic. All the claymation stuff was amazing to watch. And it's, as you kind of pointed out earlier, it looks a little goofy, but there's something really... what's the word I'm looking for? There's something really...
appealing. There's just something fun about that style of effect. Really.
Appealing, I guess.
It's just awesome.
Yeah, and the story is a fine story. The real plus for me for this movie is that it is paced really well. There's not a moment of there's a couple boring moments near the beginning with like Anne and Driscoll, but other than that, it's paced really well. It's all exciting from beginning to end. Just a fantastic movie, and it's a classic for a reason.
Yeah, you mentioned the pacing. I agree with you. I think even the opening stuff before the ship actually takes off is pretty well done. I like the establishing of like something Denham is doing is, not up to snuff. He's up to something weird. We don't know what yet. It's pretty cool how it goes about that. And then, it drags just a tiny bit on the ship, which is where we get the love story with Driscoll and Anne, which, even though it's mentioned that they're getting married, it's not a huge part of the movie. It really isn't. This is a movie about the monkey action, really. I mean, well, not just the ape, but just the creatures, the fantastical world it's just a classic adventure movie. It's just got that feeling of adventure. You're seeing something. I mean, obviously 80 years of movies have come out since, or 90 years of movies have come out since then, so we've kind of seen stuff like this and other things, but like this, we've even seen remakes of this movie, but like this was stuff in 1933, no one had seen anything like this, in a lot of instances, and even still, even though we've seen a lot of this stuff in other things since, it's still just exciting, and there's something about it. Yeah, the music, I love the music. The score by Max Steiner, who's one of the most classic Hollywood composers. I think he did movies like The Searchers and stuff, so like a bunch of classics. Yeah, this is an excellent movie. One of the best movies we've covered, I think. I
totally agree with you on everything you said. Just a fantastic action-adventure movie that, again, is thrilling from beginning to end.
Yeah, it blends genre as well. I mean, it's a giant monster movie. There's like the horror aspect to it, obviously. Obviously it's not like scary today, but this is the horror, there's the action adventure, there's the just being thrown into this like fantastical world, there's that fantasy, not like high fantasy, like Wizard of Oz kind of, Lord of the Rings kind of thing. But, there's fantasy there.
Yeah, and I mean, all the monster fights are great. Kong versus the various monsters. It's all exciting to watch.
Yeah, the pterodactyl, I think, is an underrated one. The T-Rex is obviously my favorite because that's awesome.
Yeah, even the snake
Kong
lizard
cheated.
monster thing.
Yeah, it's great stuff. Are you ready to move on?
Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
All right, go ahead. When you're ready, just do some kind of transitionary.
I'm gonna transition. Oh my god!
Just like the monkey transitioned for this film, for his role in this film.
Yeah, let's see. Damn it! Yeah, because I was gonna say, well, Patrick, moving on from one monkey movie to another, we've got Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
Sure.
Came out in '64. It was directed by Byron Haskin, who's I think his most famous picture was exactly.
Which this movie reuses special effects from that film because the little alien spaceships that show up are the tripods from the War of the Worlds in '53. Even though they're not tripods, they're just like flying saucers. But there was like a line about like, oh, actually, there's these like invisible lasers that are tripods. There's the same exact ship. I think it might be like a different color in this, but same exact effects. We're lazy in this film, but no, I mean it's this movie in its own way is a special effects masterpiece. Maybe not to the level that Kong is, but
it is, yeah. And I mean, for 1964, it looks pretty great. Still, I mean, like Star Trek, the original series, came out in '67?
Yeah. The pilot was shot in like 65. The pilot wasn't aired on television until like the 80s, I think. But yeah, so Star Trek as we know it is 66, 67, the first episodes. And I would compare this to Star Trek.
Than anything in Star Trek.
I think you're just dealing with the movie budget compared to a TV budget, but they have similar looks to them. There's that like very colorful, like Technicolor kind of look, and I love that. Like Barbarella is another thing that kind of has that look to it, like that '60s sci-fi colorful kind of thing. Forbidden Planet, even a movie which that's from the '50s, also kind of looks like that. I just love that look. It's a really neat aesthetic. I appreciate it. It's about as boring as any episode of Star Trek. Also,
oh my god, yes.
No, yeah, this movie is as dry as the surface of Mars.
Not in this movie. It's pretty wet in some places.
Right. Well, it's it's a movie.
Yeah, I will say too, this movie is essentially the original Martian, the original The Martian.
Very similar, yes.
I also looked this up. It had a
except he doesn't eat his own shit in this movie like Matt Damon did.
Yeah, well, Matt Damon, he's just a big shit eater. The original title for this movie was Gravity Probe 1, Mars.
Oh, that's awful. I mean, don't get me wrong, Robinson Crusoe on Mars is a bit much. That doesn't roll off the tongue ridiculous. So well.
Well, the Paramount sales manager, which I've written down, his name is Charles Boasberg, I don't know. He thought that title sounded too much like a documentary and would put people off, so he was like, let's call it like Robinson Crusoe on Mars or something. That's how they got that, which is also like a kind of a ridiculous name for a movie.
Oh, it is, yeah. Well, first of all, I guess, do we have to say what Robinson Crusoe is? Does everybody know that?
People should.
Well, it's a book. It's a book written by Willem Dafoe.
In what, like 1770?
No, it's you're supposed to correct me. It's Daniel Dafoe.
Oh, yes, Daniel Dafoe. Yes.
Yeah, I said Willem. But yeah, it's.
I heard Dafoe. I was like, yeah, that's right.
early 18th century. It's Dafoe is. It's considered the first novel in British literature. Which, I mean, what's the first novel? Like, okay, a lot of people say it's like Don Quixote, which was like 1600 something. That's Spanish, though. But then you have the picaresque novels. You have like things like those go back to at least like the 1590s. So whatever, for the purposes of like the English tradition, the novel more or less starts with Defoe, which I've actually never read Robinson Crusoe. I've read Moll Flanders, which is another novel by Defoe, and I remember enjoying that rather well. But I'm overall 18th century, not my century. Not it's not my type, my favorite kind of literature.
# not my century.
Yeah, not my century. Even like the poetry is lots of just like rhyming couplets, and it's really dry. Like Alexander Pope. Yeah. I don't like him. Wordsworth and those guys are like later in the century. Like they're fine. Really, the only writer I like from that century. I like the satirists. I like Jonathan Swift is writing in that century, and one of my favorite writers ever, Lawrence Stern, who wrote the Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy Gentleman, which is one of the funniest fucking books you'll ever read. It's incredible. One of the greatest novels ever if you're into weirdo, like, postmodernism from this 18th century, which, as far as I know, he's the only one who was doing it. But yeah, no, not my favorite century of literature, but Robinson Crusoe, it's a novel about a guy who gets shipwrecked.
Yeah, for
and
28
he comes
years.
across this native guy who's named Friday, or names him Friday, I don't really know, and he's like his assistant.
Yeah,
That's that novel, right? I mean,
pretty
are
much,
we missing anything?
No,
is,
I mean,
is there
in
is
the
there
end,
a volleyball companion that he names Wilson? I don't know. Maybe there is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. To break Robinson Crusoe down, you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. And then the last thing to mention is, much like with this movie, Robinson Crusoe gets off the island eventually. After the 28th year, I think, which I think he meets Friday in like the 25th year. I've only read bits and pieces.
Yeah, Friday
of the book.
wasn't a huge part of this movie. Yeah.
Also, speaking of that, fun fact.
I thought the monkey was Friday. I really, because I had seen this movie before, and I thought maybe the monkey was named Friday, and that was, I didn't remember that.
No, that's
some
Mona
weird
the
alien
monkey,
dude.
whose name is Barney the woolly monkey. But yeah, Friday in the book is named Friday because that's when Robinson Crusoe meets him on a Friday.
Yeah, that's right. Which I don't think they established that here. Well, he doesn't even have days of the week. He's on Mars.
No, yeah, he just calls him Friday after the book.
Oh, is it? That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and then also, too, I didn't know that the term, what is it, Man Friday? Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Man Friday comes from Robinson Crusoe. I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
well,
that makes sense.
I'm not honestly all that familiar with that term. I know there's a Cary Grant movie, His Girl Friday. I know that's like how I know that term, and I don't even think I've ever seen that movie. I just know it. Like, what the hell is that? Like, oh, it's a Robinson Crusoe thing. Okay.
Yeah, for both men and it can be used for both men and women, and it means like somebody who's very loyal, who will do anything for you, who's
a Smithers, if you will,
yes,
from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
He's kind of the perfect example. Smithers. We've got
Samwise Gamgee.
Igor.
Yeah,
a lot of depictions of Frankenstein. Igor is kind of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any others.
So, Jim, what's the plot to this movie? There's not much.
No, there isn't. I want to say one of my favorite, I guess you could call it like a cameo, is Adam West in this.
Yeah. Well, you think he's going to be like a big part, and he's not. Yeah,
because we open on Adam West and Mona the monkey in this spaceship, and then what's the name of the actor? Paul Manty. He plays Commander Christopher Kit Draper. Anyways, they're in this ship and they have to dodge an asteroid above Mars, and then they get sucked into Mars's gravitational pull, and the ship is somehow going to be like stuck there, and they're out of fuel. So Adam West and
the monkey.
Yeah, Adam West and the monkey and Kit, they decide to jettison themselves in these escape pods, and then we just follow Kit the whole time. He lands on the surface of Mars, has a bit of trouble where he gets attacked by like a fireball on Mars, and it explodes his landing pod.
Sure.
And he just kind of wanders around the surface, and
he eventually finds the other escape pod. But Adam West is dead, but the monkey... Yes, the monkey is alive and well.
Yeah,
and the monkey's got a little spacesuit. Yeah. Which is adorable.
Yeah. I also want to say, I want to point out that the landscape of Mars is pretty hellish. Like, it's just on fire constantly, and he finds like these yellow rocks that are on fire.
Well, yeah, and he uses those basically as oxygen too eventually.
Yeah, because
he's got his own little cave where he can breathe. Because for a while, this movie, like, it looks like oxygen, and it kind of looks like it's going to be The Martian in where like it's paying attention to a lot of these things. But eventually, it's like, no, he can take off his mask. He'll just have to put it on every now and then, or his helmet, excuse me.
Yeah, because in 1964, they didn't understand that there's essentially no atmosphere on Mars.
Or maybe they did, and it's just filmmakers didn't care. It's probably more that. I mean...
Yeah, I would assume that.
And then eventually he finds the monkey, and the monkey's in the suit, and he's like, oh, you don't need this oxygen. I'm like, well, he does, actually. But... I understand if you want to live 5 minutes longer by stealing the monkey's oxygen, but the monkey does need the oxygen if we're being perfectly honest here.
Exactly. I know. I felt bad for Barney or Mona. Pardon me.
So Adam West, obviously we don't get a lot of him. Adam West is the top 5 greatest speaking voices ever. Like, I could just listen to that man talk forever. Like, he's just a beautiful beautiful voice. Wish we had more of him. And I don't know if he's a good actor. Whatever. He's probably better than this other guy we get. This other guy, what was the actor's name again?
Paul Manty.
Do you know what significance he has in the role in television history?
Ugh, no, I have no clue.
He played the first on-screen Klingon in Star Trek.
Oh, did he really?
I couldn't tell you what episode it was, but it basically that the only thing I took from that is like this guy's worn blackface at one time or another because I don't know, for me, like Klingons are like the classic Star Trek. They're not always villains, but they're the classic Star Trek race, right? The classic Star Trek
Klingons and Romulans. Yeah.
And Vulcans too, but Vulcans are more the allies. But yeah, no, well, Romulans a little bit. Yeah, Romulans. Like Klingons are the one, like, there are weirdos out there that know the language Klingon, and like Hamlet has been translated to Klingon, and like there's weirdos out there, right? It's a great Frasier episode where Frasier is supposed to get Scott Bakula's autograph for this massive Star Trek fan, and because he wants this guy to write his a speech for his son's bar mitzvah in Hebrew. But because he doesn't go and get Scott Bakula's autograph, the guy ends up writing the speech in Klingon. And so he's like at the synagogue delivering the speech, and he's just speaking Klingon. And they're like, what the hell is he doing? It's great stuff.
That's great.
But yeah, so.
Well, yeah, let's get back to this movie.
What I was going to say about Klingons though is like Klingons did not leave much of an impression on me in the original series. So I couldn't tell you what episode this guy's in, but he's in whichever, first episode, first season, second season episode the Klingons are introduced. He's in it, I guess. So good for him. Good for him.
Yeah, before getting back to the movie, I feel like the first Klingon episode, one of us should look this up, but I feel like the first one is Trouble with Tribbles, but that can't be true. That can't be right. That's the first time I remember seeing them in Star Trek.
I'm looking it up because you can talk about this joke of a movie.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. I don't even hate this movie, just to be clear.
No, it's not a terrible movie. But anyways, the whole movie, as you were saying, looks like it's going to be this whole like survival thing where the first issue Kit has is getting oxygen. And he's got to ration his oxygen, but he wants to find Adam West, who, again, as we pointed out, is crushed beneath his lander, and he gets Mona the monkey, and he has to ration oxygen, food, he has to ration water. He quickly finds that these like yellow rocks that he's been burning for warmth also give off oxygen. When he passes out from running out of his oxygen and he wakes back up next to these yellow rocks. So he has like a way to refill his oxygen tanks and live indefinitely if he finds food and water, which I really like the scene where he's rationing out these meals and water for him and Mona, and the monkey doesn't really want it. So he's like, oh, well, she must know something I don't. So he feeds the monkey a saltine cracker with turkey paste on it with extra salt, and then follows the monkey to this watering hole it's been getting water from. And in this watering hole, he's growing like this weird sausage seaweed that is totally edible, and that he then starts farming en masse, or on like this massive scale, right? Like, so now he has food, water forever, so much water that he can swim in it whenever he wants. Yeah, and he's good on oxygen. So all that's been solved, and then that's the next bit of the movie, really. We just watch him hang out and swim and hang out with Mona, and then we learn that he's been on Mars for a little over 4 months.
I gotta stop you for one moment.
Yeah.
I was mistaken. The actor playing Friday is the first on-screen Klingon, not the main character.
So what's the first Klingon episode? Oh, Errand of Mercy.
Errand of Mercy. Yeah, I just found that as well.
Okay, yeah.
I don't remember that episode.
No,
like I said,
me
Klingons
neither.
did not leave a lasting impression on me. I was more into the Salt Vampire.
The Salt Vampire,
and the Gorn. I mean, the Gorn is the best thing ever. So, Jim, what did you think of Robinson Crusoe on?
That's fantastic. Yeah, let's talk more about Star Trek.
No. I mean, there isn't that much to say about this.
No, because not much really goes on. I mean,
it's slow.
Yeah, it's like almost unbearably slow, actually.
It was. I remember enjoying this movie when I first saw it. I do remember that. I really think it's for the aesthetics alone, having seen it the second time, because like I said, I didn't hate this movie. My goodness, is it slow? Is it dry? And it's like, I'll take that in like a hyper realistic science fiction, which obviously this isn't, or maybe I'll take that in like a 2001 where maybe it's not hyper
Yeah.
realistic, but it's just this like
But it's
the
interesting to look at.
filmmaking is just so above and beyond fantastic that like you can't take your eyes off it. And this isn't that. It's got some good cinematography though. I love the colors.
Yeah, I love all the shots. I mean, because they filmed the majority of this in Death Valley, right? All of that's beautiful. Watching Kit walk around and whatnot. Just to kind of wrap this movie up, because again, there isn't much else to say about it.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
He finds the skeleton eventually with a bracelet, and he's like, "Oh, that's crazy! It looks like this guy was murdered. I'm gonna blow up my ship that's still in orbit, so possible aliens don't find me." And shortly after he does that, these alien ships show up and start bombarding the planet. And then he runs into this other alien who's also wearing a bracelet, and they become friends. And this is the guy he names Friday, who happens to be like an alien slave. Yeah. yeah, he's an alien slave, or an alien slave.
It's like in Phantasm. It's like the dwarves.
That's exactly
slaves.
it. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so Kit and Friday start hanging out and farming together, and Kit eventually starts bumming these oxygen pills off of Friday, who doesn't need oxygen. He just pops these oxygen pills.
Right.
But that's only after Friday takes Kit to this like a destroyed slave encampment, because I don't know, this really goes nowhere. You just learn that the aliens are really shitty beings and they treat slaves really poorly, as
which they're
you know,
firing, they're shooting at I think we kind of figured these were bad guys to begin with. But again, worth reiterating, these are the reused effects from Byron Haskin's other classic science fiction film, The War of the Worlds, which is a great movie, and it's much better than this. Not to hate on this movie that much. It's reasonably good.
No,
it's not that enjoyable, not that entertaining.
No, and the only selling point on it really is the aesthetics. And again, it's that like it's all the colorful stuff, all the interesting stuff to look at.
That's part of what I enjoy about, like, let's say again, the original Star Trek series. So much of the execution of that show is pathetic. It's embarrassing. the action scenes, like the fight scenes, when it's like very clearly a stunt double, because William Shatner had it in his contract that he wasn't able to like get up when he was on the ground, just because they use stuntman for like everything, and it's always these long shots so you can easily tell it.
Yeah,
execution of that show is embarrassing, and what carries it for me, because I'm like interested in these like colors and this 60s imagination of what the future would look like, or what space in alien worlds looks like. For me, what really works about that show consistently is just the look of it. Like there's that episode where they're like in the cave, and then there's everything's like really bright and colorful there, and it's like, I don't know, I like that stuff. I do. This movie, it's ambitious enough. It's I just think it bit off maybe a little bit more than it can chew, because it's largely a one-man drama, and that's difficult storytelling to make compelling. I mean, we've seen it happen. Castaway is a very good movie. It's not like it hasn't worked, but it's not exactly easy.
Sorry, I was just looking something up here because I wanted to read you this thing I found on Wikipedia, because that's one of my main sources of information, I guess. And
you're the one who studied history, just
yeah. I didn't use it for that. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, no, I don't think we've got journals of the people that worked on Robinson Crusoe on Mars. I don't think we have a lot of primary sources.
Exactly. Oh, also, let me just finish this up
Did the monkey
quick.
keep a journal?
Yes. The long and short of it is Kit and Friday have to leave their cave that they've been living in together, because the aliens are tracking Friday with his bracelets.
Right.
So eventually Kit saws both the bracelets off with some wire, and then they find themselves in the canals of Mars underground, and they have to go to the surface. Right. They find themselves at the North Pole, and they're terribly thirsty. It looks like they're going to die. They find water. Then they have to live in snow, and that's freezing. They've got a little igloo, but then an asteroid hits and buries them in snow, and it looks like they're about to die. But just as it looks like they're about to die, this big fireball goes off from, I guess, like another asteroid, and it warms them up, and they're like, oh, thank God, we're not going to die now. And now the aliens can't track us because you don't have either of your bracelets on. This is great. And then there's another alien ship approaching, because Kit has like this radar thing. He thinks it's the aliens coming back, but it turns out it's an Earth ship. It's a ship sent from Earth to look for Kit or any survivors. And they're like, woohoo, yeah, we're free. We're gonna go home to America. And Friday, you're coming with me, man, Friday.
Yeah, then they enslave Friday, probably.
Yeah.
We know how Earth's history works. He's an exhibit at a zoo somewhere. I mean, probably.
Yeah, well, there's a really weird part in the movie, like right after they meet each other, and Friday goes to Kit's cave, and he's like, and Kit goes, "Oh, you're a slave. Remember, I'm the boss. I'm the boss. Don't you ever mistreat me, because I'm the boss." I'm like, oh my god, relax. You just found out that this guy's people are being murdered by aliens, and that they're a race enslaved. And you're like, listen here, you son of a bitch. Don't you ever double cross me. I'm the boss. You're
it's
my
like
slave.
The Twilight Zone episode, The Little People, if all of a sudden Claude Akins also became evil. And he didn't gain any sympathy for the little people that were enslaved by his partner. He just immediately started being like, yeah, you guys suck. Yeah. That's kind of the end of it, isn't it?
Well, and here's this weird quote I found that I'm going to read out to you. And it's from the director. So Byron Haskin told interviewer Joe Adamson, he goes, "Robinson Crusoe on Mars was so obviously a director's tour de force that there was nobody to interfere and tell me how to shoot. I can't think of any other film I've made, unless it was The War of the Worlds, where I had such complete autonomy, that I had as much genuine pleasure and fulfillment from as Robinson Crusoe on Mars. It was as fulfilling as cinematography had ever been. Everything I set out to do, I accomplished as well as one possibly could. We made exploratory trips into Death Valley, and I conceived a key to credible..." Okay, no, hold on. No,
it sounds pretty proud of his freaking work.
Yeah. There's some big words here. Yeah, everything I set out to do, I accomplished as well as one possibly could. We made exploratory trips into Death Valley, and I conceived a key to credible verisimilitude.
Verisimilitude, okay, yeah.
Thank you. Yes, verisimilitude, you're right.
Verisimilitude. Okay, this guy's a little
yeah, he's a little full of himself.
A little Ridley Scottish.
I would abandon shots from the valleys, make them from up on the ridges. Death Valley had been seen in hundreds of westerns, but they were all shot from the bottoms of the canyons, because that's where horses could gallop through. On the top of these weird-looking ridges of marshmallow sands, the vista was something else. It looked like another planet. Certainly not Death Valley. Additionally, I conceived making the blue skies red.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so this guy thought he was directing...
I think that works. I think the sky stuff works. I'll give him
the sky stuff works, but the way he's talking about this movie, it sounds like he thought he was directing something akin to like Lawrence of Arabia. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it does sound like that. Yeah. So so first of all, I'll agree with him in one thing, and it has nothing to do with the director's autonomy, but I also cannot think of another film he's done other than The War of the Worlds. So I'll give him that. I literally cannot name another movie this guy's done. Maybe, 11 years in between, I'm sure he made a bunch of movies. I don't know if he was like always science fiction. I mean, the two movies I know of him doing are science fiction. So as for the director's vision thing, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say, yeah, this probably didn't have a lot of studio interference, because they probably would have told him to make it less boring.
Yeah.
Maybe have something happen. Maybe just make the monkey a boy.
Yeah.
Down to there, don't make him wear a diaper
I thought about
cover
that.
up his boy parts.
I thought about that. I was like, what if they just didn't want to show monkey penis on screen?
It could be, yeah. It could, yeah. Who knows? The censors just weren't ready for that. I don't know. The American public were not ready for that.
They're ready for King Kong in 1933.
Well, I don't think King Kong has.
King
Kong takes the clothes off the woman. I don't think you see his junk in that movie. Not that I recall.
We, the audience, didn't see it, but Fay Ray certainly did. The one thing I will say about this movie, like a definite positive, is that the sets all look really neat. Yeah. All of them really interesting. Like near the end, when they're like at the North Pole and they find that pool of water, and on top of it is floating like rocks or something like that. It all just looks really neat and interesting. It's all you can kind of bathe in each set piece. Like it all is really gorgeous.
Bathing?
What?
Where are we going with this? What are we doing?
You know what I mean.
I don't think I do.
You can just soak it in. You can just soak it all in.
Okay, soak it in. Sure, I can soak it in.
Like bathing.
Yeah. Well, I don't bathe, first of all, but yeah.
You're dirty.
Yeah, I do agree. I like the sets. I like the Death Valley stuff. Sure. It works. It's alien enough. This doesn't because we've all seen low budget, more modern movies where, alien landscapes is just the desert in California. And they do things with this, even with the sky, to make it feel more alien than just shooting in a desert. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. So that stuff all works pretty well. It's really just, there's not a whole lot to the story. I think, Because early on, this movie seems like it has like very serious stakes, when it's like, okay, the oxygen, like, okay, what's he going to do? And then for a while, it's just, then after he solves a few problems, then the movie kind of just meanders for a bit. And then we throw aliens at us, like we need a threat all of a sudden, but the alien threat isn't even that well developed.
It seems like they could have done so much more with that. Like, actually have those aliens approach Kit, or have them be shown on screen other than through that little like television thing that Kit was watching, because that's where you see these aliens. They're wearing like their own spacesuits or whatever, carrying alien guns, and it's like, how come we didn't see them for the rest of the movie? Was it like budget, or was it just not written into the script? What was going on there?
Fair question. Yeah, those are all. Yeah, that's I don't know what to tell you. I mean,
and then even on top of that, I actually wrote this down when I was watching it. At the 17 minute and 30 mark,
very specific,
Kit gives like a recap. He gives a recap for the audience to explain what's happened, and it's like
17 minutes in is a bit early for that.
Yeah, and it's also like nothing has happened though. You have found some rocks. You have found a cave to live in. No, Adam West. I don't think.
Yeah,
Adam
that's
West
right.
was
We
dead
don't
at that
have
point.
confirmation that he's dead at that point. He's just not in the movie. That's fair.
Kit's sitting there. He's like, "Oh, I'm going to go find Adam West in the next couple days. I'm running out of oxygen. I've got about 50 hours left. This is why we had to abandon our spaceship."
Would this movie have been better if Kit was played by Burt Ward?
Burt Ward. Yes.
So, what did you think of this movie overall? I mean, we talked about a lot of negatives, a few positives. Like, did you enjoy it? Would you see it again?
You know what? I'm not sure. I think I would watch it again, only out of curiosity, I guess, just to watch it again, and just to pay more attention to the.
Where does the curiosity come in on the second viewing? Because I feel like curiosity is a great reason to see something a first time, not as compelling on a rewatch.
You're right. I guess it's not curiosity. I guess it's more just I want to see those sets again, and I want to pay more attention to what's going on instead of the story, because the story is so boring and. I don't know. It's just too boring. The only way to see the movie would be if you wanted to see it for the sets and the cool 60s sci-fi stuff.
Yeah. This is Barbarella without the sexiness and without the weirdo, like, hippie philosophy. I tend to enjoy Barbarella because of it's like this weird 60s like fantasy sci-fi colorful thing, but it's also entertaining because it's like this weird hippie philosophy where they try to kill this woman by orgasm, but she's too sexually charged that it won't kill her or something. I mean, that's Barbarella's, it's something else, but yeah. Yeah, so because I have seen this movie more than once now, obviously, and I'm going to say 2 times is enough. I don't regret having seen it a second time. I didn't enjoy it as much as I remembered it. But yeah, I'm not itching to see this one a third time.
No, and I totally get that, because I'm still on the fence if I want to see it a second time. It was also relatively long.
It was close to 2 hours, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 50, shorter than 55. King Kong, right?
Was it? Well, King Kong has 2 different lengths, first of all, because we didn't mention this, and I don't know which version you saw, but some versions of it have an overture at the beginning and some don't. So it's a difference of like 3 minutes probably, but King Kong's like an hour 45, I think, an hour 40, I think.
Yeah, and I think this was an hour 49.
Yeah.
I think, because I was watching this on YouTube.
Yeah, King Kong, I'm seeing 100 minutes and 104 minutes with overture. Robinson Crusoe, I am seeing 110 minutes. So yeah, an hour 50. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, a little long.
Yeah, it really does feel like it's runtime, and then
I think you can make a more entertaining 90-minute movie out of this. I do agree with that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of like walking stuff you can cut of Kit just traipsing around Mars.
Sure.
There's just so much stuff that doesn't happen. Like, just get it out of here. Just stop it. Just sit down and do something interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, or just give us more Adam West. Switch the actors. Have Adam West be the one that lives, because I want to hear more of his voice. His sexy, smooth voice.
Would he have been filming Batman at the time?
No, this is pretty... I think Batman's 66. Batman's 66, I think Star Trek's 67. So the Batman and Star Trek were more or less contemporaries. Batman's a little later than this, I believe. Could be wrong. But I think most television in 64 would have still been black and white. And Batman never was black and white, to my knowledge. So that would make sense.
Well, yeah, I guess we're done with that. So what were your final thoughts? I guess we already ran through them, so...
Yeah, it's a better movie than it is entertaining, if that makes sense. It's a more
Yeah,
interesting film
it's
than
technically
it is fun.
It's technically better than it is entertaining.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. It's not a bad film, but it's also not that entertaining of a film, and that's really where I stand on it.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page as you. Yeah.
So, perhaps a predictable answer to this question, but which of these two films, King Kong and Robinson Crusoe on Mars, do you prefer?
Man, I don't even have to answer that. you know which one. Definitely King
Now,
Kong.
which is drier? Is it Robinson Crusoe on Mars or Peter Jackson's King Kong? That's the question.
That's still got to be Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, so I also prefer King Kong. 1933 King Kong, definitely. Better movie, more entertaining, better pace, overall more entertaining. Both movies are, influential or impressive for their special effects, but King Kong even more so. And not just because it's older, just, because giant apes they're fun.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, do you think these would work as a double feature?
Oh boy. Well, let's see. So we've got ape/monkey in both, and that's kind of it. That's kind of all we've. I mean, they're both adventure films. They're both adventures in fantastical places. They're both the questionable depictions of native races, I guess. Neither film's passed the Bechdel test.
No.
I think there's one woman, there's a few women that get sacrificed, I guess, in King Kong, but there's basically one woman that speaks. Well, no, there's because the lady that doesn't know what show she's going to. There's a few ladies in the Broadway scene, come to think of it.
There's the native lady that screams at her baby.
No, the movie might backdoor a Bechdel test passing in there in one. It's possible in Broadway that two women talk to each other. That's possible. Although they might still be talking about Kong, in which case they're talking about a male. So in that case, it would not pass the Bechdel test. But yeah, this movie, no women, Robinson Crusoe. I'm going to say no, not a great double feature. I think I would match up Robinson Crusoe as the more boring first part of like a Barbarella double feature. I think that could be interesting. But yeah, King Kong, it's too good of a movie to sully with Robinson Crusoe on Mars. It's too exciting of a movie, I'll say, because Robinson Crusoe's not a bad movie, but following up that rip-roaring adventure with this bit of a slog is unfortunate. Jim, what about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think, what's it called again? Oh yeah, Robinson Crusoe on Mars.
I know, it rolls off the tongue, that title.
I wanted to call it The Martian.
It's right up there with Sorority
movie.
Babes and the Slimeball Bolorama and the movie that you don't believe exists, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity.
Yeah.
Great film.
Doesn't exist.
It exists. Oh, I've seen it. It exists. And we'll see it, too.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll see it. Yeah, it's just too boring, Robinson Crusoe on Mars. It's just, like, if you start with King Kong, it will just absolutely destroy the momentum of that evening for a double feature. It ruins
the goodwill of Kong, yeah.
Yeah, and then if you start it with Robinson Crusoe on Mars, you just want to go to bed.
Oh,
yeah, or die.
Sleep,
yeah, either
die's a bit extreme, but yes.
But yeah, you just want to close your eyes and have a nap after you finish Robinson Crusoe. It's just there's just not like again, I don't want to say there's nothing there because it's an interesting movie and it's it's aesthetically interesting. Sure. But when it comes to the script and everything happening in it, it's just too dry and boring.
And I feel a bit less bad about not loving this movie so much now that I've heard the director speak, and he sounds just way too full of himself,
As soon as I read that, I was like, well, okay, fuck this guy. I don't have to like his movie.
Yeah, well, like Ridley Scott, his films also make me want to fall asleep, so...
unless it's two Fassbender bots playing the flute. I like that.
War of the Worlds, though. War of the Worlds is a very good movie. I'll give him credit for that. That's one of the best 50s sci-fi movies, and of course, I'm a big 50s sci-fi fan. So on that note, we've got a 50s sci-fi film coming up next week, and
oh my god,
it's another giant monster movie because we've got Godzilla Raids Again, the first Godzilla sequel, the film that pits Godzilla against Anguirus, one of his least worthy foes, I'll say. It's not the best fight. It's a fun fight, but yeah. Godzilla Raids Again, also known in the English dub as Gigantus the Fire Monster, which is just an unfortunate title, but yeah, we're doing the Japanese version, the subtitled version, of course. Although we do, because I've already recorded that episode with my friend Sean, we do discuss the dub of that one because he had seen that a bunch of times. And we're following that up with Killing American Style, the 1988 action crime hostage movie from director Amir Shervan of Samurai Cop fame, and starring Robert Z'Dar of Samurai Cop fame, as well as Maniac Cop. You know, Z'Dar is one of the all-time great, you know, B-movie masters. You know, he's great heavy, you know, the great bad guy type, and he's a compelling performer in that film. So those two movies, like I said, me and my friend Sean are going to be talking about those. And until then, you know, feel free to follow us on Twitter at Drive-In Podcast. Also, we're on Patreon, patreon.com/Revenge of the Drive-In. We
Give
will have
us
been
money.
On Patreon for quite a while at this point, but this is the first episode we're recording since I've set that up, so this is the first time I'm mentioning it in an episode. But yeah, we've got early access to episodes and trailers on there. We've also got commentary tracks. We did a commentary track on Saw. We're about to do a commentary track on the 1999 film The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser Crane.
Shut up.
Yeah, so, I mean, by the time this episode comes out, that commentary track will already be out, but we're going to try and do commentary tracks once or twice a month, I think, so we'll see you there, and we'd love to hear from you. Tune in next week for Godzilla Raids again and Killing American Style.
Since I'm not in that, I'll say, till next time, everybody. See you when I see you.
Until Friday the 13th, Part 3, and The Prowler, that is.
Oh, that's right, yes.